Good evening, everyone. Today is Monday, September 22nd, 2025. I've got 7:05 p.m., so we will go ahead and call this meeting of the Committee of the Whole to order. We will get started with items from the Department of Finance. Good evening, Director.
Good evening. Requesting a resolution accepting, authorizing, and certifying the property tax rates and amounts. This is a product of the tax budget that was filed in July. Distributes our 2.4 mils across the general fund, bond retirement, and police pension.
All right, any discussion from my colleagues? All right, seeing none, resolution on for consent on the 6th?
Yep, it's regular and routine.
All right, thank you, Director. Moving right along. Items from the Department of Administrative Services. Good evening, Director.
Hello.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm here this evening. If you last year during the budget season, we talked a lot about staffing with a staffing study and then staffing for this year. And we were still evaluating staffing related to 825 Tech Center as far as custodials and maintenance staff. So today I'm here to talk about the facilities division and then the staffing request for the maintenance division. So this is, the facilities division is in the Department of Public Service. So in the gold bracketed, you can see there, in this year's budget, we budgeted for facilities superintendent. Facilities superintendent Adam Grove is sitting behind me. He was promoted from the foreman position to the superintendent. So that left his foreman position vacant. And this year's budget also was a service maintenance worker 2 that was budgeted for Q3 of this year. So we are in the process of filling that new position as well as Mr. Grove's backfill. We will be filling 2 service maintenance worker 2s at this time and not backfilling the foreman. So today I'm here to discuss the custodial and general maintenance request. So we did evaluate Jen Hamilton, the project manager in public service, and Corey Wyvensinger, and Kevin and I and Sean and Adam looked at, and the mayor looked at different staffing models versus a contract versus employees. So our recommendation is to hire 5 service maintenance worker 1s to perform custodial and general maintenance work. So the current contract for just these facilities, City Hall, Senior Center, and the PD, you can see is about $68,000 a year and about 48,000 square feet. The estimated contract at 825 is estimated to be somewhere in the $400,000 range for a 130,000 square foot facility. So, and then the estimated staffing costs are around $500,000. That does include salary and benefits. And as a reminder, when we do cost projections, we do cost out for family insurance. So if someone elects not to take our insurance or single or different coverage, that cost would be lower. In addition, for the 5 maintenance workers, we projected that 3 of them will come in at start step, and we're hoping to hire at least 2 with some kind of experience, so that would mean that they would come in at a higher step than start step. So this $500,000 estimate includes 3 being hired at start step and 2 being hired at the end point. These would be steelworker employees, so we use the projections based on their contract. As a reminder, their contract is up this year. We'll be negotiating it starting next month. So the reasons why we're recommending city employees instead of a vendor, I put a few up on the slide here. We believe city employees will have a higher ownership of their work, higher dedication to maintaining our new facility out there. In addition, they would be available for emergency response based on the way we modeled the staffing would be and the shifts that they would work. And per their union contract, they are required to come in on emergencies. In addition, they would be able to assist with facility rentals. There's many different spaces that can be rented to the public in other jurisdictions. So we would need facility staff to assist with room setups, tear downs, those kind of things. as well as access to police areas. Individuals that have access to police areas have to meet LEED certification requirements. Chief Spence is here if we need more information on that, but that does require that you pass a little quiz, go through a LEEDs audit, and you have to have, you can't have a felony to qualify for LEEDs access, because when you're in the police area, you could come across LEEDs information and LEEDs things on computers, papers, things like that. In addition, we'll have direct oversight and management employees over a vendor. At times, the vendor can send employees in that don't show up, don't do the level of service that we maintain, so there's a lot of back and forth with the vendor of who's in the facility, who's not in the facility, who's coming, who's not coming. That leads to issues with badge access, access to the different building, as well as ensuring that they can access the police facility. And then the custodial staff will also be doing general maintenance. So for example, if they're in an area doing custodial work and there's a light bulb out, these folks can change that light bulb. This is a very simple example, whereas a vendor is not going to do that. And hopefully they would report it back to Mr. Grove so that could be addressed as well. So our recommendation again is to add these 5 service maintenance workers. The reason I'm here in front of the staffing for the budget is because this is a civil service position. We do have to run a civil service test for this. So we would like to get a head start on that civil service process. At the current time, we project that if we were to start the civil service process sometime in October, we would stagger the hiring of this staff to ensure that they're not here too early or too late. If we waited until budget approval and did the process when the building opened up sometime in Q1, we would not have employees ready to help clean that building because of the length of time that a civil service process takes. So there is no supplemental requests because there is enough salary savings in those accounts right now, because we don't project that we would hire anybody until December, if not even until January.
Thank you, Director. I see Mr. Schnetzer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Director. Just want to make sure, I just want to kind of encapsulate some of what was just discussed. The numbers to compare ultimately are the estimated contract at roughly $400,000 to the $500,000 figure. Is that much correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. And that $500K is kind of, based on what I'm hearing with family insurance and all these other things, that's kind of like a worst case scenario. So in all,
That is correct.
Okay, so in all reality, it likely or maybe will come in lower than that. I guess I understand some of the benefits, particularly access to secured areas and 24/7 availability. I'm just curious, has there been any discussion about maybe a hybrid model where that certain areas that are, I guess, not as sensitive, say non-police related areas, could be staffed by a contract, and then we would have our own city staff people take
We
care of
did
them?
talk about a combination of a maintenance contract and city employees, but we did believe the cost may be higher. And then also the scheduling of that. When is the vendor in? Are they in during business hours? Are they not? When we have rentals on the weekends, who's here, who's not? We would prefer that rentals and people renting our facility are interacting with city employees and not a vendor, as well as the overall desire of the Department of Public Service was to have one group to manage, not two. Because in that scenario, we'd have direct oversight and union contract management of city employees, and then we have vendor management as well.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Mrs. Jones.
Yeah, so you mentioned the contract is getting ready to expire. Is there, I guess, should this pass, will there be a gap between contract expiring and getting these roles, and what do we?
Yeah, so this position, service maintenance worker 1, is already in the contract. So
Okay.
we would just meet with the union to say, we need to hire custodials. Would you like them in the union? The answer will likely be yes.
Okay, so not a contract with the vendor, meaning like if we have to renew the contract with the vendor?
No, when the Department of Public Service did that contract with the vendor this year, they put renewal clauses in there for 6-month terms to extend, depending on how long we're in this facility, to extend those services, and then again if need be.
Okay, so no risk of like breaking contract, owing something to a vendor?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. McGregor?
Who cleans the police station now? Has there been problems with the contract workers?
So the contract that we have now, they have different levels of service. It's easiest to think about them in low, medium, and high. The services we have in our facilities and all facilities right now are the lowest level of service, and so we don't have experience with the vendor providing a higher level of service because that's not we would be at a high level of service in the new facility because of the different flooring textures, wall finishes, just the overall building to maintain its standard.
But as far as security and problems, we haven't had problems with the contract workers.
Not to my knowledge, no. We primarily have 1 to 2 individuals from that vendor who clean all 3 facilities on this campus. Because one employee cannot clean 130,000 square feet
No, I understand
in one
that,
day.
but it just seems that's a big difference, $100,000 between the contract and the employees.
And that would be the max, that would be a maximum. To Mr. Schnetzer's point, if folks take different insurance levels or are hired at different pay rates, that's the maximum amount it could be. It is very likely to be lower.
Any other questions or discussion on this item? All right. Well, there's not a current ask, it's more of a preview. So for my druthers, I think it makes sense bringing this in-house. I think to your point about the estimated cost in terms of staffing versus what the estimated contract is, having that ownership and control on city staff, I think the net benefit is there. I guess I would say I look forward to you previewing this conversation in the budget.
So just to be clear, we'll go forward from this point and do the civil service process with preparations to hire end of December, beginning of January.
That would be my druthers.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, next up, we have items from the Department of Engineering.
Good evening, Chair Weavers, members of council. I have 3 items before you this evening for consideration. The first 2 items are requesting permission to bid on 2 capital projects. The first one is sanitary sewer repair, replacement, and new main line extension. This is 2 projects combined into one for overall economies of scale. The first area is along Hamilton Road, crossing Hamilton Road along Granville Street, crossing underneath, well, right now it crosses underneath the BP fueling station. We're going to reroute that section of sewer, and then that goes over to Jan Drive. The next portion is a main line extension along East Johnstown Road, just in the vicinity of Pamela Drive to provide sewer service to 2 properties that are within the city of Gahanna that are presently on septic and would provide utility services to those 2 properties. I'll pause there and seek any questions related to that project, and then we can go to the cleaning, televising, and
Yeah, thank you, Director, appreciate it. So to clarify, the 2 parcels along East Johnstown Road are not the parcels related to the pre-annexation agreement that we considered?
that is correct.
Okay.
So it'd be immediately heading south or east from Pamela Drive, 2 properties that are within the city of Gahanna, serving those 2 properties that are not served presently.
And assuming that this work is undertaken, would that have an impact then on the parcels that were described in the pre-annexation agreement? from a couple months ago.
That area would, these two parcels would tie into that same sewer heading up to Morris Road.
Any other discussion on this motion? Seeing none, I'm fine with consent on the 6th. All right, thank you. Next item, please.
The next item is requesting permission to bid on sanitary and storm cleaning and televising of our stormwater and sanitary sewers in the College Park and Heritage subdivision. This is in support of our MS4 NPDS commitments, as well as our sanitary sewer OEPA capacity management, operation, and maintenance efforts to keep in good standing.
Any discussion of this item? All right.
So I'm just laughing. Layman's terms, man.
And the third was for an engineer.
We'll go with, we'll go with consent on the 6th then for that one as well.
And the third and final item is requesting acceptance of storm, sanitary, and roadway improvements for Crescent Circle. This is down in the area of Crescent Place, Ortho 1, the new apartments, and the Sheets development. Everything has passed inspection. They're in their punch list phase. They're actively working on addressing those items, past all appropriate inspections.
Any discussion of this item? All right, seeing none. This one's an ordinance, so we will put it on for first and then consent on the 20th. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director. All right, next up, we have items from the Department of Economic Development. Good evening, Director, and would you take a moment when you have a chance to, when you're settled in, to introduce our guest this evening?
We will all introduce ourselves.
Wonderful.
Let's see.
Let me try it again. I was on it.
Okay. Got my computer, got the microphone on. All set. Thank you. Council, it's a great pleasure for me professionally to present this to you. I know I've only been here for a short amount of time, but this is the result of years of work, which you'll all hear about, and it's my great pleasure that I get to present it. And I am thankful for the confidence that the mayor and you all have entrusted in me and the others to present this to you. And I'm sorry to my colleagues who have to wait for this whole conversation to be had, but not to Kevin, because he was kind of a jerk to me today, so I'm glad that he has to wait. Yep. True. Especially today. So to get to it, Council, you're being asked to vote on a development agreement. That will be the foundation. There will be many other agreements and many other initiatives, but this is the foundation for a catalyst project in the Creekside district. This project, if approved, will continue to to define the Creekside District as our vibrant town center, a place where people can live, work, shop, visit, dine, and interact with each other. It will continue to make the Creekside District a place that defines the city's identity, attracts visitors, acts as a place for building relationships, and a place that residents can continue to be proud of. To quote former President Biden, this is a big deal. So, to do a little level setting first about what you're seeing and what's actually going to be happening, I thought that would be helpful. So this is both the beginning and this is both the end and a beginning. So it's the end of the development negotiation phase. It's the end of site assembly, finding the right developer and negotiating the deal. But it's the beginning of the transformation of Creekside. It's the beginning of a multi-year construction project. It's the beginning of a lot more things. Any images that you see tonight are conceptual renderings only. It's hard to talk about these kind of developments without saying, well, what does it look like? So what's there is just kind of a, this is what it could look like, but likely will change throughout the rest of the process because, like I said, this is not the end of the approval process. There are many more steps along the way. This is one agreement in a multi-agreement process that will come before you. There will be this, there will be purchase, nope, not that one. There will be TIF agreements, there will be an NCA application. There will be more agreements that you will see here. And the city will remain involved, the city meaning primarily the Economic Development Department and the administration, will remain involved to verify performance, during and after construction, and to help the public at large and the stakeholders, the businesses, the residents, the traveling public through the area to minimize the disruption that any construction may cause over the short term. And we've talked about this before. This is kind of the confluence of several separately occurring issues, but they all kind of get to this bigger reimagining of Creekside initiative that just kind of all happens to be converging at one time. So we talked about this the last time we met with the demolition of the properties that the CIC owns at Creekside. We have the public plaza revitalization, and then we have the Gahanna plan, which has a lot of Creekside components to it. And lastly, the site that we're talking about is all but one of the CIC-owned properties in the Creekside district and one city-owned parking lot, and I'll show you that coming up soon. So I thought it might be helpful to take a little journey back in time. Mayor Jadwin, who's been involved with this from day one as mayor and before, can give us a little look back into kind of how we got to here before we start thinking about what's ahead.
I'm just glad you didn't say we were going back in time because I'm older than you are, Jeff. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. So as we begin this conversation and start talking about this development agreement, I thought it might be helpful, if not both informative and important for residents who might not have been here for more than, other than just the last 5 years, to understand how we arrived at this agreement, how we arrived at this juncture tonight. We all talk about the Creekside development. Everybody knows that. That is a development that began construction back in 2004, 2005. It opened in May of 2007. It is now 18 years old. And if you just drive down Mill Street, you realize that what we did was we developed one part of one side of the road and nothing else. In the last 18 years since Creekside was built and opened, nothing new has been built or added in that area. And we have really done nothing to enhance or add to what the Creekside development was supposed to be. There are many vacant properties, as we all know, that have been uninhabited for more years than I can even remember, and many of the buildings are uninhabitable at this point. Several of those parcels that I think there's a map that Jeff will put up in a little bit, but several of the parcels that we're talking about were owned by, excuse me, a local developer who back in 2016, so how many years ago was that? Almost 10 years at this point, initially proposed a mixed-use development on both along, I think it was the east and west side of Mill Street, if I remember correctly. The same parcels we are talking about today. That proposed mixed-use project eventually transitioned into a proposed apartment-only project. It was a project that was negotiated for 6 years between two administrations, both Mayor Nealon's administration and mine. We were 2 years into negotiating that project, trying to figure out how we could make it work within Creekside. And challenges around those negotiations led us to ask the question of, how do we get the development that we, the community, want to see in that area? The development that the community wants to have and that sets that area up for success, one that reflects the needs of the community as well. As a result of the negotiations that were happening in those questions, it led the city in partnership with the CIC, and I know we have some of our CIC folks here this evening, in I think it was May or June of 2021, to begin work on developing a Creekside redevelopment strategy. And talking with economic development experts, how do we get the development that we want? The answer was, Mayor, you got to control the properties. Okay, how do we do that? You need a strategy for how you want to redevelop those parcels. So that's what we did. We worked for a year. There was significant public engagement throughout that 1-year process. There were surveys, community conversations, but we also involved the private development community, because at the end of the day, if the community says, I really want the Leaning Tower of Pisa in the middle of Creekside, but there's not a private developer who wants to invest in that or sees that as a fruitful investment for them, it doesn't really matter. So it was the Creekside redevelopment strategy was informed by both the Gahanna community members as well as the private development community. That plan identified parcels that were ripe for redevelopment and parcels that really were ripe for being acquired. And those are the parcels in response, and after that plan was finalized, led our CIC to go out and purchase those parcels. And again, Jeff will put a map up in a little bit to show exactly what those parcels would be. After CIC acquired those parcels, there was an RFP issued for a developer, ideally looking for a master developer to come in and develop all of those parcels cohesively so that there would be one uniform approach to the way they were developed. We did have a developer that we ended up working with as a result of that RFP, and we're engaged in negotiations for almost a 2-year period. Time flies. Unfortunately, those negotiations did not head in the direction that we had hoped that they would. And we started having conversations with other developers, but we could not find a developer who was interested in giving us what we wanted. We did not want to piecemeal, you can develop this one parcel and you can develop this one parcel. We really wanted that cohesive master development approach to all of the parcels that CIC owned. And it was in early 2024, I'm trying to remember, when we connected with Connect Real Estate and Benson Capital. And we have been in negotiations with them. A lot of research done, touring their facilities, understanding the products that they make, understanding their approach. And we do believe that in this partnership between Connect and Benson, we have found the partner that we wanted, the partner who could bring to the table what the community envisioned for the Creekside district based on that redevelopment strategy survey that happened and that community input that was garnered as a result of that strategical plan. But we have a development team, I should call them, who is local ties to Gahanna, local ties to Central Ohio, a development team with a proven track record, with a strong reputation, a developer who understands what the importance of a project like this would be to the Creekside district and to our community. And I believe a developer who actually has a product that is innovative. They were just, they'll probably talk a little bit about it. I'm going to assume you're going to talk about your visit with the Secretary of HUD who came through your warehouse and talked about the innovative approach that you're taking to construction, which, given the sensitivities that we have down in the Creekside district, would be an ideal I believe, partnership for us to work through in terms of not only what they build, but how they build it. So this agreement tonight is the work of a year and a half of work with this team. Director Gaki, Nate Green from Montrose Group has been by our side throughout this entire thing. He's probably dreaming and eating and sleeping this project as well. So at this point, I'm going to turn this back over to the two of them to let them continue from here.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to give you a sense of the involvement going forward, should this be approved, it really is a public-private partnership. So you've got the Gahanna CIC, a quasi-public entity, and then different levels of government, both local and state, all working together around a publicly informed vision. I'll introduce some of my CIC colleagues sitting behind me. Mr. George Mruss and Ms. Jody Carter are here tonight. But you can see overall, I won't go through them entirely, but you can see overall the different organizations and the different approvals, the different roles that they'll play throughout this process. So it really will take a number of organizations all working in concert to complete this development. I thought, so Mayor did an excellent job of kind of summing up how we got here, but I wanted to demonstrate how the proposed development fits in with public sentiment and development best practice. So this is the educational portion of this, if you'll allow me for a minute or two. Solid principles of downtown development. Best practices show that downtowns should be a civic, cultural, and activity center for the community. The Creekside district is our downtown. People see it as kind of our public square, and it really is that civic and cultural center. Within planning best practices, you take your town center, and that has the most concentrated units there, the highest concentration of uses and of units and of residents, and sort of radiates outward. So this fits in with that best practice as well, because it will concentrate more people in our downtown area. There's this old development cliche that retail follows rooftops, and I don't know how many of us and how many times we've had the conversation of, well, why can't you just get X, Y, or Z business to Creekside? Like it's that easy. We can just wave our wand and businesses will show up. There's many factors that businesses, many factors involved for businesses locating to a particular spot. The first primary one may be, what's my market shed? What's my customer shed? Will the people come here? And businesses won't go somewhere where there's not people, where there's not rooftops, where there's not housing. You know, businesses don't send out the scouts, right? They come last. And I think our market has proven over the last 18 years that the residential saturation in the Creekside district isn't enough to support businesses. Downtown development practices should cultivate a consistent and distinct look and feel. I think through the land use plan and the development standards that we're doing that, and so we want to be mindful of the look and feel throughout the downtown. Mixed-use development optimizes our usage, right? So what you're going to see is a mixed-use development. Retail on the bottom floor, office, residential on the above floors. Like that is like the Romans were doing that, right? Like that is a tried and true development practice. And then this I borrowed from the Roger Brooks study. He talks about 10 plus 10 plus 10 for a visitor economy. 10 boutique shops, 10 restaurants, 10 destination or experience type businesses to really cultivate a vibrant visitor economy. And then I put the extra 10 on there. If we're going to have concentrated residents, they're going to need things to do regularly, things that they can go to once a week, a market, a pharmacy, a bank, things that they can walk to. So to really have that comprehensive downtown development, those 10 plus 10 plus 10 uses. So this chart shows us, this came from a 2019 study, so it's a little dated, but what you see in this chart is typical towns like ours and what types of stores typical downtowns like ours have that ours does not. So this basically shows you what we're missing down there. So you could say, oh yeah, well maybe we have an eyewear place, and maybe that has come since 2019, or perhaps it doesn't have all of the market share to like quite check the box as having that market in our downtown. Those gray boxes show within the Gahanna customer shed a higher than average spend. So that means our residents spend more money on those types of businesses than others. So basically, that's our target list of types of businesses that could be successful in the Creekside area. Okay, and then what you see here is this is recent data from June 2025 from Placer, which tracks cell phone and credit card data. But what it shows you is from 2019 on the right, that's the red column, to 2024 on the left, that's the blue column. It's a little counterintuitive how it's listed there, but what that shows you is in the far left column in 2024, the number of visits, the visit frequency, the average dwell time, and the year-over-the-year visits are all decreasing. So that tells us that Creekside is falling behind as a visitor destination in numbers and in duration of stay. So a refresh, a reimagining is in order. And that's both with the public plaza and then the vibrancy and the foot traffic and that kind of hustle and bustle feel that visitors are attracted to. These extra residential units will bring downtown as well. I was just still looking, so I was just waiting.
Please.
Sure.
When you're
Public sentiment. So this came from our Creekside redevelopment strategy in 2022. This is the percentage of people responding to what they would like to see in the Creekside district. 70% more and a greater variety of housing. And then you can see the types of businesses. And those were our top four responding, top four vote getters there. And then lastly, I won't ask you to read all of this, but I was provided with the first round feedback from the Gahanna strategy. And so you can see there some of the responses about what people would like to see and their impression of Creekside. So you'll get a copy of this. You can read all those later. Okay, so I'm going to stop talking for a minute and introduce our development partners. So I introduced CIC members a minute ago, and then we've got our two development partners that from Benson Capital and from Connect Real Estate, and I'll let them introduce themselves individually.
Thank you, Jeff.
I think it's on, looks on.
Good evening, Mayor Jadwin, members of council, city staff, the CIC, and everyone for joining us. My name is Frank Benson IV. I'm the principal and founder of Benson Capital, based here in Columbus. Allow me to begin by expressing my gratitude for the opportunity to be here this evening. And for 2 years, a year and a half to 2 years of constructive collaboration and sustained engagement as we evaluated a joint venture to revitalize Creekside. This community is very personal to me. I went to school here in Gahanna from pre-K through graduation. I have family who live here today, and some of my earliest and best memories were made at Creekside. As a kid, spending weekends playing in the creeks, buying my first bike at a shop in Creekside, and attending school functions at Creekside Event Center. These are just a few experiences that shaped my connection to Gahanna and Creekside. Professionally, my team and I are committed for the long term to strengthening Gahanna's economic and civic fabric. That commitment is reflected in our existing ownership interests throughout the city of Gahanna, including Stone Ridge Plaza at Hamilton and Morse, anchored by Kroger and Cinemark Theaters, the Vista Rocky Fork Apartments and Vista Plaza, anchored by Fresh Time, and the new Crescent at Central Park project, which includes Crescent Woods Apartments across from John Glenn International Airport, which is nearing completion right now. If we're fortunate to move forward together at Creekside, our approach will be straightforward. Listen first, be transparent, and partner with the city and CIC to elevate public spaces, support local businesses, and create a vibrant district that reflects what residents value most. We're prepared with our partners at Connect Real Estate to invest significant private capital to bring new dining and entertainment, best-in-class housing with modern amenities, and enhanced trail connectivity that ties Creekside into the broader community. So thank you again for the opportunity. I appreciate the chance to be here, and we look forward to continuing the conversation. And I'm going to turn it over to Bob.
Council, thank you for the opportunity to be able to be presenting tonight. We appreciate your willingness to have spent the last 2 years, along with your staff in the mayor's office, in working to help drive this project forward. Bob Lamb, I'm Executive Vice President of Development for Connect. Connect is a local real estate company that was founded and owned by Brad DeHaze. We work on a multitude of different types of projects throughout the Central Ohio community, many of which are mixed use, which we are proposing for this project as well. We're currently active in Marysville, downtown Columbus, Springfield, and many other markets. One of the unique items that you are able to secure with this type of a partnership is a development team that truly cares about the community that they work in. We are local residents of Central Ohio. Our investors are individuals with strong ties to the state or to Central Ohio community. And we have done, from a Connect standpoint, a multitude of different development projects in the Columbus, Central Ohio area. Many of you have been to those projects, whether it's East Market, the Trolley District, over by Bexley, or it's the redevelopment project that we did with the municipal light plant in downtown Columbus, right across from the Crew Arena. All of these showcase our willingness and drive to commit to the local community, not just to complete a project, but to make sure that it is done in a manner that supports the local community, as well as maintaining high design standards. Both Municipal Light Plant and East Market have won awards for their designs, as well as our Connect Housing Blocks manufacturing facility, located also in Columbus, which won Employer of the Year award in 2024. So our ability to be able to address projects from a multitude of fronts, whether it's aesthetics or financing or working with the local community, is something that makes us a unique partner. And given the amount of various documents and agreements that need to go forward on a project like this to be successful, we think our partnership here with Benson Capital brings a unique team together to help bring this project to fruition.
Do you want to talk at all about your innovative housing block product?
Yes, I wasn't sure how long I had to speak, so I wanted to be respectful of everybody's time. Connect Housing Blocks is a company that was also founded by Brad DeHaze. Brad, several years ago, probably almost 10 or more, saw the fact that there were a multitude of issues that were going to be facing the construction industry, whether it was labor or material or costs. And so he began the process of putting a team together to launch Connect Housing Blocks. Connect Housing Blocks does industrialized units for apartment complexes, single-family homes, and townhomes. What makes it such a unique product, and you can see the result of that product if you go and look at the station over by Trolley, which is just south of Broad Street. What we are able to do at the manufacturing facility is condense the construction period and streamline it into a manufacturing process. So we take rolled steel, they go through our various machines, are shaped, punched, and formed into the frames that you see are used for our industrialized units. Those industrialized units are then turned into apartment units. So whether it's your kitchen, bathroom, living room, bedroom, all of those are created and formed through this process. All the inspections are done by the state at the point of manufacturing, and then upon being approved by the state, the unit is shipped from its location at the manufacturing facility to the project site to where it is set in place. The key benefit to a local community that this product allows is the speed of construction. So we are impacting surrounding property owners or affecting the local community at a much shorter time period than what you find in traditional construction. Because while we are able to be doing site work, we are manufacturing these units at the facility, then we're able to truck them in and set them in place. That means that we have fewer workers on site taking up parking. That affects surrounding businesses. We are completing the project faster, whether it's a third or more, and a quicker response time. So we're able to get residents into the community. We're able to get the businesses open at a quicker time frame to bring those benefits to that local community. So I talked about the speed of construction, but also one of the great items that this allows us to do is to build to a higher standard. So when we are able to manufacture these, we are able to reduce waste. So you see at least a third reduction to as much as 70% reduction in waste or environmental contamination. So the rolled steel is able to be recycled. We see less waste of material from rain or other environmental impacts to a project that would be built outdoors, because this is done in a manufacturing facility. We have less trucks going back and forth from the site. We have less on-site waste. All of those things help us do a project that is environmentally friendly, while also we're able to secure up to LEED Silver certification with these units. So all of this is what helps us drive a cleaner, more environmentally friendly product at the end of the day.
Thank you. So, talk about the why, talk about the who, let's talk about the what. And I'll give kind of some high-level things, and so Bob and Frank, if you have anything to add to the project details, feel free to. So here's what we're talking about. This is the site map. I mentioned it is all but one of the CIC-owned properties in the Creekside district and the existing city parking lot at Town and High Street. And so what's being proposed is one project, but two phases. And you can see there, and they will happen consecutively, phase one and then phase two. So phase one, two buildings, one on either side of the street, back where you can see the two blue boxes there, just north of the existing Creekside building, and then directly across the street from Walnut to Carpenter on Mill Street. Two buildings, 263 apartments, one 55 to 70 room hotel, two restaurants, a co-working space, and a parking garage. And so this development will be entirely self-parked. So there will not be any excess need for city parking facilities outside of this. And then the hotel and apartments will have state-of-the-art amenities, pool, a gym, and then a connector bridge over the street that's branded with a nice Gahanna G on it, connecting the two buildings so that residents and hotel guests can get back and forth between parking, amenities, and their own spaces. Anything to add? No? Okay. So, again, remember these are conceptual renderings only. This is not necessarily what the final design will look like, but again, you can't talk about these kind of things without saying, well, what do you think it could look like? So, exterior finishes may not be the same, but it will show. This shows you a little bit about the scale and the location of the buildings themselves. So this is looking north from Walnut Street into a restaurant space. The hotel entrance there you can see is conceived to be on the far right of that photo. This is kind of the reverse of that, so this would be looking south down Mill Street, kind of standing on Carpenter there. You can see the connector bridge across. So you've got 1 6 and 1 7-story building there with street trees and greenery and a comfortable pedestrian walking experience there. So this would be kind of above the existing plaza looking northeast. And you can see that would be the hotel that's in the foreground there, and then the residences in the background, and a patio for hotel or resident, rooftop patio for hotel or resident uses there, kind of immediately behind it. What's helpful about this perspective is you can see the parking garage there, just to the lower right, and there will be a separate entrance on the street to the east there. Anything else? Okay. And then kind of a zoomed out view from the same vantage point, but you can see just over the parapet there, you can see the parking garage in the back on the eastern building. All the parking would be on the eastern side building there, and you can see that. Four-story, well, it would be basically 1 per floor, or almost 1 per floor, and then each unit would have designated parking, and then there would be public parking and hotel parking as well. So phase 2 contemplates 24 townhome units, first floor parking for each, so that would all be self-parked with private patios. This is just really 4 rectangles on a drawing. We're still working on the site plan on all of that. Doesn't need to be done for this development agreement to move forward, and we'll talk about why in a minute. Anything else about the townhomes? Okay. So Mr. Green from the Montrose Group can talk about he's going to give you a little orientation into the development agreement itself, because it's a little lengthier, and this has a few more components than you're probably used to seeing, and then we can talk about the basic terms of it.
Do you want to go to that next slide?
Sure.
Sure. Okay, so the development agreement itself, it's a 4-party agreement. The parties to the development agreement are the city, the Gahanna CIC, Connect Realty, and Benson Capital. Just the broad strokes of what the development agreement does. It provides the economic framework for the parties to invest the necessary capital, and in return for the developer's investment, the exclusive rights to develop the site, to develop the development site. That's a lot. It's in the development agreement. That's what it says. But that's a lot of development and development. But anyway, it gives essentially what it does. It says here's the economic framework, and then the developer can go to develop the site from there. We've talked about it a little bit already. The document does not discuss planning or design elements. As Jeff has talked about, those will be, as we go through the planning and zoning process, the engineering process, that'll all be laid out in that. The development agreement does not discuss that. The project, as we've discussed already, and this is in the development agreement, it's broken out into 2 phases. There's phase 1, which is the mixed-use project that's on Mill Street. Phase 2 is the townhome project that's on High Street. We have set those up, and Jeff will talk about this in a minute, for the timing of those projects. The phase 1 project will happen first. The phase 2 project will happen second. One of the big components of this is that it sets out the purchase and sale of these properties to the developer. And it sets it out through a separate, the development agreement talks about the sale of those properties, but there is a separate purchase and sale agreement for phase 1 and phase 2, which we will execute once the development agreement is done. We will execute the purchase and sale agreements after the fact, after we're done with the development agreement. But that is in this development agreement. The sale price that we've set up in this agreement is essentially $100. We have gone back and forth, on this project. The economics of the project are very tight, and because of that, what we've set up in the development agreement is that the land will essentially be contributed to the project as the city and the CIC's investment into the project. That is a big component. Certainly that's something we need to talk about further, but that is something that is part of the development agreement. There are other documents that you will see as exhibits to this agreement. There is, as I said, the purchase and sale agreement, the PSAs, for phase 1 and phase 2. There is a form of completion guarantee. We'll talk about the timeframes and what that means, but essentially it sets out the timeframe that the developer has to complete the project, both phases. There is there is also a form of construction manager at risk. Essentially that says that the developer can complete the off-site improvements, but they're the manager at risk for those improvements. Within the document as well, there's a reconveyance of the property should they not complete the guarantees in the time frame, how that would come back to the city and the CIC. There are also economic development incentives talked about in the agreement. The first one, well, they're in reverse order in the document, but this is in a community reinvestment area. It is a pre-1994 community reinvestment area, so for the first 15 years, there's a 100% 15-year, 100% tax abatement. There's also there's a non-school TIF, meaning that the taxes that are generated from the project in the first 15 years from land, and then the last 15 years from land and building, the portion that doesn't go to the school would go into the TIF to pay for on-site and off-site improvements. We have also contemplated the potential for a new community authority, an NCA. There would be a hotel charge, potentially a retail sales charge, and then potentially a millage charge as well. And then it also contemplates other state programs if we look into those. The transformational mixed-use development tax credit, and potential other programs as well. So Jeff, you want to go to the? We have talked about this a little bit, but I thought Jeff and I thought and the mayor thought it was worth noting just other projects in the region that have used this public-private partnership model to make projects happen. Our neighbor to the south, south, is that right? Whitehall, their Community Improvement Corporation. It's late. I don't know my directions anymore. But the Norton Crossing project, if you all remember that's at Broad and Hamilton. That project was apartment units before. It was a challenging site for the city. The city went in and bought the site. and then contributed the site to Continental Real Estate. It was a $55 million mixed-use development. The city contributed $5 million worth of the land to that project. Dublin, their Bridge Park project, that's been it's a big project, an immense project, but the city of Dublin contributed roughly $12 million in assembled land for that project. They've contributed other things for that project as well, a TIF. There's an NCA on that project, but it's a project that the city there has contributed a significant amount for. The Marysville Union County CIC, the city of Marysville and Union County have a CIC. They've contributed and made an investment of $7 million for the purchase and renovation of, or not renovation, for the demolition of some buildings there. That is a project that Connect is working on, but it's another project that a CIC and a city was involved in. There's also incentives there. There's a TIF. There's an NCA. There's also a CRA involved in that. And then in Lancaster, there's an industrial project where Magna Seating is now located, which was a CIC-owned property that the city originally owned and then conveyed to Magna Seating for that project. So anyway, those are just some projects to compare as we're thinking about the development agreement, how we do this. Back to you.
Thank you. So, almost done. Hang in there. That was more for me. So, if we look at impacts, so this comes up a lot. We want to make sure that the deal is in the best interest of the city, both financially in the short term, but then just kind of from developmentally in the long term. This kind of looks at the financial benefits here. So you've got right about $105 million in total construction cost as the development sits right now. Whatever happens when that building is built, that property will have been improved $105 million worth. So if we look more at the financial annual contributions, so the residents, the hotels, and the restaurant, like total GDP, and that's that space plus the indirect effect plus the induced effect, like all the dollars you can trace back to that project, let's say. It's $7.1 million within the, I believe that's by the zip code, the 43230 zip code annually. And then total economic impact, that's if you could trace all the dollars back, trace all the dollars back, it's $10.4 million, just a hair under $10.5 million in economic impact annually. $1.4 million in local, state, federal tax revenue would be generated by annual operations. That's all manner of taxes that exist there. Labor income, $3.267 million. And then that, of course, would be eligible for city income tax, which I can show you in a minute. And then 74 jobs planned on site. Most of it residences, but 74 jobs for the hotel and the retail restaurant spaces. So we've done this before. We've looked at gives and gets. So the city, in this case, would give the CRA tax exemption, which is already existing. That's by right. That's not a new program. That's something that anybody in that area would be given. Under this agreement, we've agreed to share 50% of TIF payments until eligible costs have been paid for. The same with NCA fees. Quick reminder, NCA fees are not a diversion or an abatement like TIFs. Those are extra fees that are borne by the property owner or the users on that site. So this is extra dollars that are added, not money that is taken away via an abatement or a pilot payment. And then 50% reduced city fee review and approval fees. Those are financial gives. Non-financial, you can see the High Street parking lot. And then to do building 1 on the east side, that larger building with the parking garage would require vacating 1 block of North Street and 1 block of Lodge Alley between High and Mill Streets. On the gets, you can see income tax, 50% of TIF payments, 50% of NCA fees until the fees have been paid, and then the bulk, the remainder would go to the city. And then non-financial, this is something we haven't talked about yet, but is worth mentioning for sure. Connect has agreed to support organizations and activities that have a presence at Creekside for 10 years, either through manpower, voluntary, financial support, et cetera. They have agreed to create internship programs for programs that they have within their company, so that would be like finance, construction management, et cetera, with the Gahanna School District for 10 years. They've agreed to extend the existing multi-use path that just kind of dead ends behind the existing Creekside buildings and connect that over to Carpenter Road, to install some sort of public art feature in the park that is not called Rock Park, but that's what I call it, and I forget the actual name of it. But there's a rock there, that's how you know. That sits at the terminus of the trail, and then unwanted portions of that, like the creek bank that aren't necessary, would be deeded back to the city so that the city gets to control its own destiny when it comes to those floodway issues. Currently, we believe that the parking structure will offset the losses of the parking lot on High Street. We are currently doing a parking demand study in that area, so we'll know a little bit about what the current demand for that use is. And then they have agreed to reserve 10% of the units, this is on your request, 10% of the units for affordable housing projects, which will be targeted towards residents with 80% of area median income. Okay, and then here is the 30-year financial impact, and this is only to the city at the moment. So we can just look at city impacts and we can kind of add the other ones on later. But you can see there the city's property value, or property tax millage is minimal. So over the term of the CRA, it would be just under $500,000. It's hard to guess what the NCA and TIF payments are at the moment, but the TIF will generate about $10 million over its life. And so if we say we share those equally, then that would be about $5 million. So you can see on the city gives line in the what we can quantify, it's about $5.5 million. And then there's the approval fees and the NCA fees, which we still have to figure out. But regardless of whatever that number is, it's still going to be far less than on the right column in the city gets column, just over $23.5 million over the 30-year financial impact, not including just that improved $100 million site improvements. But you can see there, $16.1 million in income tax for residents, 2.4 for the workers, and then the TIF, $5 million, and then the yet to be determined 50% of NCA fees. So if you're doing that math as it sits right now, $23.6 million return for a $5.5 million investment. And then I think this is the last one that I've got. Yep. So we look at the completion guarantee that Nate mentioned earlier, and this is really where a lot of this is detailed, but you can see kind of some accountability timelines and measures that we built into this, because while we believe this is the right project and the right developer, economic circumstances could conspire where something catastrophic could happen, and we would have to use some of these accountability measures. So basically what we've got is an agreement to complete phase one within 36 months of receiving their approvals. That would be like building permits, et cetera, all of the necessary permits, 36 months. Paperwork would be filed to form the NCA within 6 months. There's a 60-day due diligence or inspection period that would start upon the signing of this agreement, where further due diligence could be done. And then once the construction plans have been submitted for Phase 1, 18 months before submission for the Phase 2 construction plan. So we're trying to run those consecutively, but we don't want like Phase 1 to get all done and then start it over on the whole process for Phase 2. We want to run them together as much as concurrently as possible. And then you can see we've got some reconveyance language in there that parcels would be reconveyed to the city or CIC if they do not receive a certificate of occupancy after that 36 months time period. And then with any financing or loan instrument that's executed, the city is insisting on step-in rights. So that would mean if there's an instance of default, then the city could come in if it wished, and assume that loan to continue carrying out the project, which would then prevent a half-done project after 3 or more years, either because of lack of completion of construction or some sort of catastrophic loan default. So we tried to hedge as best we could to assure on our side that we are getting the development that we want, but let's ensure that it gets built. So thank you for your patience. That was a lot. I did keep it to under an hour, but just barely. Happy to take any questions that you've got, and then maybe before, did you want to, anything that I neglected that you want to mention, Mayor? Anything?
I think you've talked enough. Let's allow questions and we could go from there. But thank you, Jeff. Well done. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Director. Thank you, Mayor, Mr. Green, Mr. Benson, Mr. Lamb. Appreciate you all for being here. Anticipating a good number of questions. I think in terms of just to level set, there's been, Director Gotke and I had a conversation that it would be appropriate for this to come back to committee at a minimum. So just to give folks time to review the agreement, just level set there. Also want to mention that next week is a 5th Monday, so there will be no meeting here. I know there is a request to move forward with a first reading on the 6th, though. So at a minimum, coming back to committee on the 13th, if I'm doing my math right on the days. So that said, any discussion from my colleagues? Mr. Renner.
Thank you. Jeff, I think you really summarized things very well, especially at the very beginning. You were talking about how we were moving through phases, the historical phase, the negotiation phase, and now this. As I reflect upon myself, we've had multiple executive sessions, and so if you and the public will be tolerant as we, each of my colleagues, we move from that, and so we're going to sound probably repetitive in our questions and that kind of thing. So I want to start off with, right now, the development agreement, and maybe this has already been said, but the development agreement doesn't have a lot of the exhibits attached to it. And so I wondered, when can we start having filled out exhibits?
Oh, right. So the, I think you should have at least the form agreements. Those
Yes,
are, okay.
we have those, but then,
The things that there are not in there are the on-site and off-site improvements. We do have to get those. And I think, right, and then there are some, right, so that we need, I'm just looking through the agreement, so that we, yeah, the development site, that mean the development area, some of those will be inserted after the fact. You know, the development schedule, that's something that will be, you know, after the fact. But most of those are the forms that we just talked about.
can I ask, is that uncommon to have these things that are kind of done after the fact? My experience has been, this is the framework, this is the project in the main, right? And the details, not necessarily the details, but, so you mentioned like the site plan, so that might come from a property survey that would get done later with the PSA. That's not necessarily material to the agreement itself insofar as it wouldn't, it's not a term of the agreement that would make it or break it, so to speak.
Right,
Okay.
that is true, that is true.
Yeah, so thank you for that. And again, these questions are largely going to be for public edification. But, so you're saying that by and large, the exhibits will be completed after?
Some of those, not all of them. I mean, the developments, you know, there's Exhibit A1, which is the development site. That's something we can insert. A2 is the development area. Again, that's something that we can insert.
When?
We can insert those tomorrow, Councilman Renner. We have them. The development plan, which is Exhibit B, that's something that it will be inserted later during the inspection periods, because that's something that will change as they, you know, as Connect and Benson Capital goes through their review and with all of the planning commission approvals, that will come in later. The on-site and off-site improvements, those we have to really work with the team on. Those are also something that are likely to come in later, just because we don't know right now what we don't and they don't know what the on-site and off-site improvements are going to look like.
So often what we agree to in these types of agreements is that we will work with staff, and that as we go through the review and the development process, as it's determined what the project is driving from both an on-site and off-site improvement, that as part of our permit approval process, we will agree to do certain work. A traffic study that will be conducted at some point will determine what type of turn lanes or lights are required. We would agree that based upon that study and approval from the city engineer, that we would undertake such work associated with the project.
Okay, so I guess what I'm hearing is that there's still a lot of moving parts. Then can we have like a schedule of a timeline when because you talked about periodic meetings, you know, and updates for council. I'm just simply asking, okay, and I understand all the dominoes that have to fall in sequence, but you should be able to create a schedule of a relative time frame about when these various parts and the public can expect that they're going to see them in this agreement.
And some will come, like the traffic impact study you mentioned, which is part of the engineering department's requirements, right? So that will come, I mean, that would come for any project, right? We're just declaring it here in the agreement. That will then go in kind of on their calendar, more or less, right? So it would come, we wouldn't have that by whenever you approve it.
Right.
Right.
And I think that the development schedule itself, I mean, that will, we don't know that right now because they haven't done the inspections and the due diligence on the property, right? Because we haven't gotten through the development agreement. So that's something, that schedule itself will come at a later time, just because that will also be dictated by what they learn in the inspection period and how long it will take to, for them to really frame out when things are going to happen and when construction and all those things are to begin.
Yeah, no. So I understand, and thank you for the record that you're stating it. And as we go through, we will be able to get those. So let me switch a little bit and understand.
Mr. Renner, if I may, never mind, please continue. I'm sorry, I thought there was a follow-up on that, so we're good. Thank you.
That's fine, thank you. Jeff, could you help me understand the basics of who's managing this project? And as we go through, and when are we going to be getting updates, what have you? And again, this is going to be after the, you know, assuming that it's going to be approved. Give me an idea about who is managing this and what's it going to look like. We have 825, you know, and Mr. Schultz has actually done a phenomenal job of keeping us updated on that. This project is large, and so who's going to manage it and what's that going to look like?
Good question. Thank you, Councilman. Is a little different than 825 because this is not our land, it's not our building, it's not our project. So we won't be quite as involved day to day as Mr. Schultz is with 825. However, ultimately it's their project, so that the management and the oversight of that project is, of course, up to the company. But there are all of the attendant city departments and state departments, right, that require permitting and inspections, right? But then I think really what you're asking is, how will we communicate to the public what's going on, right? So the development agreement requires a point of contact for the city to be made with Connect to be that conduit, which would be someone within the administration, probably within the Economic Development Department, or that's player to be named later. But there's required biannual updates. So every 6 months, there will be updates from the developer that can be made then to you. However, that's not good enough because there will be impacts. Residents in the area, like I said, travelers through the area, businesses through the area. So it will be primarily working with our communications and marketing department and the economic development department to maintain contact with the public and with you all via all of its channels, specifically a dedicated website with project updates, with progress, with notices of road closures, or hey, use this side of the sidewalk to get to the business today. But next week you got to go around this way because this project, this part will be closed. So we will maintain regular and consistent contact, frequent and consistent contact with you all, with the public via all of the city's media channels. Does that answer your question?
I think so. So you're basically saying your department will be managing
I'm
this.
saying that has to be determined, but I feel like it will be my department. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Well, it was
Okay,
a nice
so-
dance,
The mayor,
Jeff.
yes, there you go.
Yes, it's me.
It's Jeff.
Okay, very good. I understand, but the public is definitely going to be very anxious about this, and will want to see and have its basic, managed expectations types of things, and putting a schedule out there. Okay, let me switch gears and let Connect talk a little bit. So one of the things that it's not a surprise, everybody knows that sustainability and environment are very top of mind for me and some of my colleagues. If you could reiterate some of the things that you had on your slide about that, and let's get into the sustainability space.
Yes, so Connect will be using our Connect housing blocks, industrialized units for this project. They reduce waste on site by approximately 70%, whether that's through the material side, the fact that it's rolled steel done in a controlled environment area over a on-site wood frame, standard construction that you are losing material to exposure to the elements. Further, because it is an industrialized unit, you see less traffic being driven to the site, less trash being removed from the site. Finally, we also work with Sol on determining the LEED certification of our units. We are committed to doing that for this project as well. Again, not gaining that LEED certification, but making sure there's a third party that is verifying the work that we are doing at the point of manufacturing.
Yeah, very good. And so as I told you before, that documentation will be wonderful for us, the city, to have, to be able to showcase. And I think for you to be able to market and show that as well. Is there any ability that you can quantify some of the things that I am not really for this site, but you talked in terms of traffic congestion, trash reduction, and that kind of stuff. In your previous project or other projects, what types of things, can you give me an idea of, the reductions that are in the environmental savings?
Yeah, so that 70% reduction is the number that we have seen on our previous projects using these types of materials. From a quantifiable standpoint, I guess one of the number one gains, it ties into sustainability, but it isn't solely related to sustainability, is that shortened construction period. So we are affecting surrounding properties and businesses from a shorter period of time, but also because it is a shorter construction time, that is what's adding to that less traffic congestion and other types of items that make this a more environmental friendly approach.
Okay. And then we talked previously about power requirements and the performance of the building. Can you talk any about that tonight?
We are not at a point where I could guarantee any type of in supplier at this point in time, but it is our intent to work with the community in regards to how we handle that issue.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I yield.
All right, thank you, Mr. Renner. I see Mrs. Jones.
This also, I believe, is for you, Bob, and I believe there was a side, but can you remind me of the number of apartment units? And I think you also mentioned 10% AMI, so just for the record and community, kind of what that means, and then range of rents, looking at those, of what those would be on those apartments.
Sorry, I can speak to 263 units being proposed on that phase one first slide, and then that 10% affordability being approximately then 26 units. I do believe you have to round up, so we'll go with 27 on that one. On the affordability range side, that would be set by what the AMI standard is approved by the county at the time we would open those units. So I can't give you an exact range today because I have 24/25 numbers available, and this likely would be the 27 type 28, but it is not us who determines that. It is the federal government, the state government, and the adoption by the county of what is that AMI standard.
And is 2 bedrooms, 1 bedroom?
We'll have a mixture of units. 1 and 2 bedrooms at this time is what we are planning on, with probably some limited 3s, but that is unknown.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Jones. Mrs. McGregor and then Ms. Bowerson.
When Creekside was originally built, the city hired a construction manager. I mean, we hired an engineering firm to oversee, like, what the construction, as construction went along, they were hired to oversee that as well. I mean, and maybe engineering can do that, but maybe we have to hire somebody else to do that, oversight of that. And what happened was, as the project went along, we kind of let the engineer go, and things didn't go so well after that. And so I would hope we would have adequate oversight from our side, not to disparage your construction, but I mean, that happened before in the last development. And I really appreciate that the protection of the floodplain. You guys pulled the project back, so we were not, and I really do appreciate that, even though it lowered your units. Let's see. The only other big objection I have to this is the parking lot at High Street. That parking lot is used by many, many residents, especially in the evenings, and I just can't see losing that at this point. I did have a question about, you say that there's parking in the garage that you're building. I think that's a great amenity to that building. But is that free parking or will it be paid parking?
So it would be the spots available for individuals solely using the retail side, we would view as a free parking component, at least for a period of time. The details of how long that would be is something that we would have to work through.
But if somebody was going to an event at the sanctuary and they decided to go down and park in there, would that be a free park or a paid park?
So yeah, we are not viewing this as a public garage. It would be privately owned, and so the main focus of the garage would be supporting the retail that would be existing on the site, and then the residents living at the project.
Okay, so this really can't be used as saying that this is a substitute for the parking on High Street.
I think it would be considered substitute for parking. If you're visiting retail in that location, there would be available spots. We would be constructing the garage large enough that it would accommodate retail for that location. If your question is there going to be the garage constructed in such a large amount that anyone coming and going at any time would be guaranteed parking? That's not something I could tell you today. It will carry more parking than what our project solely demands in and of itself.
But I guess the sanctuary has many events there that use that parking lot for their visitors, for the events, weddings, anniversary parties, graduation parties. And so taking that away, those people are going to have to park somewhere else. And I'm just, that's my issue, is they would have nowhere else to park. I think that's maybe it for right now. But thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. McGregor. Ms. Bowers?
Yeah, thank you. All right, I'm going to try to organize my thoughts as best as possible so I don't jump around all over the place. Maybe let's start with the financial analysis that we had up. So one of the things I understand is that a fiscal impact analysis would also include costs to maintain and operate from a city services side. At least that's what OEDI Executive Director Mark Barbash told me last week. So I was wondering if that was something that we could come back with in terms of an estimate of city services costs in order to maintain and support the new residents that would be added through use of this project. And then I think a couple questions perhaps for the development team. And again, thank you both for your commitment to this process. I know it's been very long, and you have taken a fantastic, you've been very generous with your time in terms of educating and meeting, I think, with many of us so that we can see your work, see the projects that you've undertaken, and really get to know the Connect and the Benson Capital team. So thank you for that. So a couple of questions. If we're able to acquire, there's a parcel that's not been acquired yet, that's between the Bauer House on High Street and the concrete block building that's north of the parking lot.
Kumon Building.
Yeah, I didn't call it that because I don't know that everybody knows it as the Kumon Building, but it's a concrete block building that's immediately north of the city parking lot. So there's the next parcel to the north of that we've not been able to acquire and package. Will you be pursuing that parcel? Will you continue to reach out to that owner in an effort to develop, to acquire that as well?
We are happy to continue to attempt to engage with that owner. We have not been successful at this point, and it is not critical for the project that we would like to bring forward in that phase two.
Okay. Thank you. And then I think the other, you had the co-working space, is that planned for the second floor of this project?
No, the co-working space would be done in partnership with the hotel layout and accommodating it there, most likely on the first floor, but planning out the different areas. Usage has not occurred yet.
Okay. But there would be like an independent, dedicated co-working space that's not the hotel's mobile office, or, for patrons?
It would not, it would be available to the hotel, so it would be almost a mix of that concept, but there would be space available from a co-working concept within that area in order to facilitate both individuals choosing to stay at the hotel and then individuals who would need that small office support co-working type environment.
Have you seen that model work and exist in other places? I haven't seen that model before.
So we currently have our co-working that's named The Branch operating over at the Trolley District area. So we have it up and active right now. It is part of a existing building that has multiple end users in that building. This would most likely function a little different, but again, provide that variety of support that we find a lot of professionals are looking for.
Is that a subscription-based model then for the tenants?
Yes.
Okay. And then is there any other retail planned besides the 2 restaurants that were described?
No.
Okay. And any other office space other than that co-working space that we discussed?
No.
Okay. Just because I think that this will be a community inquiry, is there any anticipated bike accessibility? Has that been kind of thought through yet? I know we've talked about extending the trail, but anything on the other side of the street?
So we would be extending that trail, as you just previously stated. We are looking to develop it in compliance with the city standards. I believe that means bike racks and other types of items being available in order to provide that service for individuals who might have ridden a bike to the location.
Okay. And I think maybe this question goes back to the city side, but perhaps to piggyback on Mr. Renner's questions and just to get more clarity around the draft development agreement we have in front of us. So in Article 9, it discusses eligible improvements. I think those were the on-site and off-site improvements that have been referenced, and that would be included in a schedule.
Correct.
Is that intended to only identify eligible improvements for NCA reimbursement, or is that to flesh out the scope of this development project?
It's improvements for the TIF and the NCA, but it'll actually encompass all the improvements that are all the eligible improvements that they're gonna make on site. So so it'll be a little bit larger than just what'll be eligible for TIF and NCA.
I will, I think one of the concerns that I have is that we have spent a lot of time with this project, and so we have these expectations that we know what it is going to be, and we've seen more renderings than I think have even been shared here this evening. But it is not, from what I can tell, that is not, and I know we can't bind to renderings, right? We're not trying to contractually obligate to renderings, but I don't see enough of the structure, and my understanding of what we are doing is we've created a package of land in order to get what we want out of this project. And while I think that there is good intentions that exist here today, and I certainly, based on what I know of the team that is working with us, I do have a significant amount of trust, but I don't see that yet encompassed in this development agreement. Would there be an opportunity for us to identify, at least in range, what it is that we're discussing?
For the infrastructure improvements?
Yes.
I think we can talk through that. It's something that we've actually talked through a while. Go ahead, Bob.
I think one of the key aspects to this, and I apologize if I didn't make that clear earlier, is we are holding ourselves to your review and approval process as we go through this development. So we will be engaging with the city engineer, requiring them to do their approvals. We'll be engaging with the planning department on the exterior and site plan and design review approvals. that are needed. So this development agreement is a first step in a multi of actions that we'll undertake with the city staff on developing this project. So I understand that there's a concern, especially on the infrastructure side or offsite improvements, what's being driven and what we're going to perform from a development construction standpoint. I would tell you that we have to still secure those approvals from city staff, though, to be able to do the project. And that, I think, is the check box on this that prevents us from doing something that you, as city council, would not want to see us undertake in this partnership.
You know, I appreciate that, Mr. Lamb, and I would just say that I think that the analysis that the Department of Engineering is going to undergo is going to be a completely different analysis than uses, which is part of the discussion that we've all had, that the CIC has spent a lot of time in having, that council and the administration spent a lot of time in having. So I think it's a little bit different, but I do appreciate that. And I do appreciate, you didn't mention this about yourself, but I think it is important to note that you have public service experience yourself, and I think that that contributes to your ability to engage in these discussions with us, so thank you.
No, thank you very much. Is there a concern on the use side of it and the variety of uses? Because I do believe we outlined those at the beginning of the development agreement, but if it's so desired, we'd be happy to add an exhibit to the back of that to better address any questions or concerns that you may have.
I mean, I think we can, that is something, to Bob's point, we can, if the concern is what the improvements are going to be, I don't think we can get into the pure details of what they're going to look like now, because as we talked about earlier, that's going to come as the development moves along. The uses, I mean, there's a broad bucket of uses just by what we can use in the revised code, right? And I do think, though, that we can, I don't want to say narrow into them, but I think, you know, between us, we can come up with some things that we can come back to you.
Yeah, I think you're
With a
right. In
better idea.
recitals, paragraph C, but I think it could be tightened up a bit, more explicit.
We'd be happy to work on that.
Yeah, thank you.
We can do that.
I think that's all I have today.
Thank you, Ms. Bowers. Just a couple things for me. First, I also want to add my thanks and my gratitude to you all. I know it's been a long journey to get to this point. Thanks also to our CIC members for being here. Honor serving with you for several years, and I think I expressed a couple weeks ago that it was like my second meeting on the CIC where this idea first was proposed. So happy to see things moving forward. One of the things that you know we talk about when looking at economic development incentives is, you know, this array of tools in our tool chest. But what's clear this evening and from our other conversations is we're not, the city itself is not the only folks bringing tools to this. And so we talk about the but-for element here. I know we're going to pursue some state funds as well. Is there a but-for threshold where either this doesn't happen if we don't get the state funding, or we don't get the TMUD, or you know, or are we that confident that we're going to get it? I'm just trying to level set that expectation here.
So one of Connect's specialties is working at both the local, state, and the federal level to use various programs in order to bring tax credits or other financing into a project that otherwise would not be financially feasible. So we are a firm that specializes in doing that. We have a great track record of doing that. I can't guarantee to you today that we will be successful with pursuing a TMUD, but it is our intent to do so.
If you don't get a TMUD, will you still be able to move forward with this project? I think that might be the question.
So it becomes more difficult of a project to be able to do. TMUD would be a critical component for us in wanting to pursue this project further. So I don't have a perfect answer for you today. Again, as we have worked together on this project, we have looked at different avenues in which to address things that the community has wanted to see on this, and then coming back to us with that desire and us finding ways in which to make it work. Without other financing structures being in place, it's hard for me to give you a final answer on if the project would be pursued or not.
Thank you. Did we have an estimate on what the TMUD or the Transformational Mixed-Use Development Tax Credits might be for this project?
You can get up to 10% of the project costs. It's a $100 million project, so we can potentially get $10 million. Now, that doesn't mean that that's what Connect will apply for. The way that the economics and the metric works, a lot of times you can ask for less and you get the project, and you get the funds. So that would be that'd be the potential for it. I would think, Bob, it'd be somewhere between 5 and 10 million would make sense.
Yeah.
Those are the Transformational Mixed-Use Development Tax Credit. It's a tax credit that is based on insurance premiums tax, and so it's something that will have to be sold to somebody that can use those taxes, and those credits, and then it comes back in. So it's very competitive. I think, Councilman, it's something that we will work with them to at least try to make the case. It is actually something now that they will need city support for. They changed some of the guidelines, so that's something we will come back to council to get some more support for.
Thank you all for that. I just wanted to highlight that there are some elements within the city's control, and there are elements outside of the city's control as well. And certainly your experience in pursuing that, Mr. Green, Director Gaki as well, your background will be instrumental in pursuing those outside dollars as well. I did notice, switching gears here a little bit, I did notice in the report that it indicates that everything's still under legal review. I just wanted to ensure from the city attorney that we will be, well, one, if there's any concerns on your end right now, but also if you would have any concerns for the next committee, that would be appreciated.
My red line, I'm still processing my red line here, but it's all minor things. There's nothing glaring or outstanding that causes me large concern. The biggest issue for me would be just making sure that we do get the rest of the exhibits as much as possible that are referenced within the document.
Wonderful.
That's all. But I'll be prepared to circulate that red line to administration probably this week, and then be prepared before the next committee meeting if there's any areas that we are not able to resolve.
Wonderful. Thank you, City Attorney. Last, I just want to say I appreciated, I had the opportunity to tour with you both the Trolley Barn project and the housing units there. It is an impressive product that you have. So no complaints there. I appreciated the line of questioning from Mr. Renner and the responses there. I know you highlighted some of those on our tour as well. And I know not necessarily a point just for this item on the agenda, but the traffic concerns do remain a concern for me. Director Comlank, I think your team will have some reviewing to do on that front, but I'm really happy to see this on the agenda this evening, I should say, and appreciate everyone's efforts. Any other discussion? Oh, Ms. Padot.
Thank you guys so much for being here tonight. I'm happy to see this coming to committee here and having these discussions, and looking forward to hearing some feedback from the community as well. I did have the opportunity to tour the warehouse where they make the housing units with Bob, and it was really cool to see just how these are made, and to kind of go on the second floor and look out and just see these blocks kind of everywhere. It was a really cool experience, so thank you for that. And I also we've talked about how this is a partnership that we need to have a lot of trust and faith in one another. Also appreciate what your company and Brad V. Hayes is doing with investing in people, and I think that shows the character of the leadership of your company. So appreciate that. I did have a question that I know people are going to be asking, and I am blanking right now. What is the estimated number of hotel beds that you guys are expecting?
Currently, we're between 55 and 70.
Okay. All right, thank you. And then, Mr. Gaki, could you go back to the previous slide there? So, will the land all be handed over at the same time, or will that be a phase 1 and then a phase 2? Will it be all at once or two separate transitions?
They're two separate PSAs. We need to really talk about the timing of that, but the phase 1 will definitely be that land will be done in the PSA and conveyed, right after we sign the development agreement. Phase 2, it could take a little bit more time, but we could also do that at the same time. There's no reason not to do that.
Okay, so right now it's not in here one way or another.
I was looking at it earlier, and it actually states right now that they're going to happen at the same time, but that doesn't, but we could phase those out. We could phase out the PSAs if we need to, because of the fact that the townhomes are going to come later.
Yeah, the townhomes are planned as a phase 2. Our request would be that the land transfer over earlier rather than later. The reason for that is as we go through this project, just making sure that we have the land in control allows us to be able to work with our engineers, our architects, and other design professionals to really be able to move the project along. So though it's two separate PSAs, we do see the transfer of those land happening fairly close to each other. Doesn't have to be at immediately the same time, but how the development agreement is written, that it is happening at basically the same time, just under two different contracts.
Thank you for addressing this, and I do appreciate that there's some flexibility here. So my understanding is that phase 1, we're looking at an 18-month construction timeline. Is that correct? Or did I make that up?
No, so what we have in place right now is 18 months to submit construction plans for phase 2 after phase 1 plans have been approved. So what we are,
36.
they have a 36 construction month period from the time our plans are approved and our financing is closed.
I have a very strong preference that we separate the transfers into two separate transactions. I appreciate what you said, Mr. Lamb, that you want to make sure that you're controlling the land sooner rather than later so you can do site work. And I think that we can work along their timeline, but I find it to be very important that we separate these two into two separate contracts.
The land is in two separate contracts. So there are two separate agreements that control the sale of that land.
I'm sorry, excuse me, but it's one ordinance, and so it would be one council action. I'm asking that they be separated into two council actions with the second council action deferred. I appreciate the clarification, thank you.
Is the request to remove phase 2 from the development agreement?
Postpone it. That was what I understood, there was a potential willingness to address.
We would be fine to wait on the transfer of the land to the entity that Connect and Benson Capital form. Okay. We would ask that the approval, though, of the project stays within the development agreement.
Correct.
And that's a financing issue, right? Like those
Correct.
projects have to be packaged together and kind of financed together.
They'll be financed separately, but showcasing the control of the land is important from the holistic view and the conversation that we have with investors.
I see, okay, okay.
So if there's specific concerns that you have about land control after, a transfer date might happen, then maybe there are some circumstances that we can discuss to accommodate that. So I'm thinking like a parking lot lease back or something, right? If that land's not going to be developed for a while and parking is really important, then, maybe there's some sort of arrangement that can be made that way. I'm trying to guess what your concerns are.
I think it's a couple factors. One is perhaps identifying solutions to address the concern that Mrs. McGregor raised. And so giving us additional time with use of the city lot for other users in that area. Number two, in my view, is maintaining a certain degree of control to mitigate risk from the city's perspective. And so perhaps there's just some stopgap, some safety valve that allows further review.
We do, there are in the timing of the way that we, the phase 2 project, it has to happen permits have to happen within 18 months of the permits on phase 1. So at least we have some of those measures in there already. From a timing perspective, we can discuss if there's other timing that we need to have in there, but we try to at least in those, with the phasing of 1 and 2, at least state that, they had to be complete within a certain amount of time. That mitigates our risk, so that if the project doesn't happen in 36 months, well, then that's an issue. And then the land can be reconveyed back. Those are the kind of things that we're trying to do at least to mitigate that risk to the city that the projects didn't move forward.
Thank you for clarifying that, Mr. Green, because that's what I was going to say, is the reconveyance language that was built into the contract was for that reason of mitigating risk. Right. If we're going to transfer the property now, but for some reason they don't move forward with phase 2 in a timely manner or at all, we have the ability to take that property back. And so that was a concern that I had as well, is what you're always looking for the weak points, right, and trying to shore those up. So that reconveyance language was added in there for that purpose.
Along with this line of thought, can you explain section 6.11 to me? That it says like that you have the exclusive right to sell, lease, or own, market, and otherwise develop any or all portions of the property. That's concerning to me, but I'm not an attorney, so.
That section is highlighting the fact that the property would be being transferred to us, and as the developer for the project site, both phase 1 and phase 2, we have the legal right to develop that project as part of the development agreement.
Subject to and in accordance with this agreement. So
Right.
that's the functional clause that helps on that second line.
Okay, it's just concerning where it says they have the right to sell and lease, so, okay.
So going back thank you for all of the information you've just kind of given on the phase 1 and phase 2. I think Director Gaki was kind of looking for if there was a reason for concern for that. This was just brought to my attention last week, actually, was that this house does have some historical reference in Gahanna. And then we were actually sent a picture of it that looks really beautiful inside. And I don't know if that is a recent picture or an old picture or what the state of the house is on the inside currently. But it's not uncommon to see projects start and not finish or see trees, things torn down, and then something doesn't get put up. And I don't think that will happen here, but I do just want to proceed with caution, and my concern is that if if this house gets torn down and then phase 2 doesn't happen, and then we've torn down something with some significant value to members of our community, to replace it with nothing is my concern with kind of wanting to have, making sure that all the ducks are in a row for phase 2 before that home is torn down, making sure that something is going there, that action is going to happen, and that we're not tearing something down just to get it ready for someone, if that makes sense.
And my apologies, I don't know your code well enough specifically to know the answer to this, but normally if we are looking to demo a structure, we would have to secure approval from the municipality in order to do so. I'm getting a head nod that yes, that's the case here. So we could not just without your approval proceed and knock down any building. There is a process for that with the city, and we of course will adhere to that process.
Thank you.
And I'll just add too that I've been in the house. I won't speak to its condition here. We can have that conversation separately, but my department and the mayor and I are evaluating what to do about it. And if it does need to be torn down, or when it needs to be torn down, are there historically appropriate actions that could be taken to commemorate the house, to commemorate, you know, the whatever the historic significance of that property is, other than keeping it in its current spot, in its current condition. So this is something I've got quite a bit of experience in, and so we're looking at options.
Thank you. Appreciate it. That's all for me.
Thank you, Ms. Padova. Any other discussion on this item? Seeing none at this time, I will just say thank you all very much. We will put this on for first reading on the 6th with an expectation that this comes back to committee on the 13th, please. Thank you all.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. All right, moving right along. We've got items from the Senior Director of Operations. Do we need a 5, I guess?
Yeah, could we? It's been 3 hours.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take a quick 5. Thank you.
I have to stand up.
We've got items from the Senior Director of Operations. Good evening, sir. Thank you for your patience.
I do want on the record, just for a fact, that Mr. Godke really shouldn't give me the microphone last if he's going to crack jokes at me. But I'll be kind only because of the time. I'm here tonight to discuss the annual update for our capital improvement plan. It's basically the same presentation that I've given last year and in part the year before. Follow a very similar cadence here. But for anybody watching online, I do go over a variety of different slides at the beginning, so folks have a holistic understanding of what the CIP plan is. Before I get moving through the slides here, just a couple of things that have been done. The general plan updates have been done throughout the entire document. I've read the document from stem to stern, and some of the things that got taken out, if you would, were the plan will do this. It's been more couched in the affirmative that the plan is doing this, as an example. So some of the English was changed throughout the document. We will review tonight, again, something that I was here earlier in the year talking about, which was mainly Chapter 3 and changing the plan phasing. I'll also note that all financial information and summaries have been updated to reflect 2026 to 2030, the new plan year, the 5-year plan year that we organize around. Completed projects from last year that were presented or marked off of our lists have been removed from the document. And then Chapter 10, all of the detailed worksheet and summary worksheets have also been updated in total. And then I also added a project listing with funding sources to Chapter 10 at the same time. I think it's 10.2. I know you guys all have a hard copy that Mr. Van Meter was nice enough to print out, and then he was nice enough to kill a couple of extra trees and print it out a second time, the big bulk of it, because I had screwed up in the document that I originally sent him to be affixed to the agenda here. The other thing that is also affixed to the agenda is a summary list, and this is more for the public and you folks here, a summary list of the 2026 funding requests for the capital budget. That will play directly into the schedule that we'll see at the backside of the presentation here. Again, by way of review, some of the opening slides here are very, very similar, not very similar, they're identical to what was presented when we originally adopted the CIP and now a couple of years ago. But just starting with what is the CIP, and again, I know all you folks know, but for anybody who may be watching at home, a CIP, Capital Improvement Plan, is a working document used as a planning and management tool by local governments to identify, prioritize, budget, and construct capital improvements over a given time period. Obviously, as I indicated already, the time period on our particular plan right now is being updated from 2026 to 2030. And then it's just our way of systematically evaluating competing demands, right? Our financial resources are limited, so how do we do things that are sequenced? How do we make the most efficient use of the taxpayer dollar? How do we sequence things more appropriately than maybe just doing them, I guess, given the late hour, I use the words willy-nilly, right? But we like to be organized and plan around a particular prescribed set of projects. That just makes staff's life a whole lot easier. And then obviously the last point on this particular slide is it's really more about the process, the CIP process, than it is about anything else. As you know, the capital planning process is informed by a variety of different plans that we do have already on the shelf. This slide has been updated with our Gahanna as example. That used to say up until now, I guess I didn't change my 23 to 27 as I'm looking at it. But go forward, Gahanna used to be in there, and that's been updated. But there's a variety of plans that identify the projects that ultimately get stood up into the CIP itself. I'll also note that I changed the thoroughfare plan to the comprehensive transportation and mobility plan. And these are some of the plans that we're ultimately all familiar with that provide our guidance and input into the capital improvement plan itself. Just to review some funding sources, right? So our largest pot of money is our issue 12 capital fund. I'm not going to spend much time here, but it was passed in May of 2019. And this is the largest pot, I think I already said that, the largest pot that gives us the financial resources to catch up on the deferred maintenance that we have lots of conversations around in CIP advisory committee meetings, and then in conversations with the different departments that have access to these dollars. Again, it's not just the issue $12 is not the only fund mechanism that we have for capital improvements, but we have special and proprietary funds, utility funds, those types of things, grant opportunities, TIF dollars, special assessments, tax levies. Obviously, those are all opportunities for us to fund a variety of different projects and a variety of different capital improvements. And this slide here details those details each of those mechanisms. Again, our capital planning process is pretty streamlined at this particular point in time. We've been doing this now for about 3 years. So departments assess their projects. Worksheet and justification is ultimately submitted up to the mayor's office and to myself and Director Volmer and the other folks that sit with us. Ultimately, these projects are provided or presented to the advisory committee meeting, and then council action is ultimately taken either through a plan update like this. There's potential for supplemental appropriations to need to be taken or made in some instances, but ultimately they get incorporated into the CIP. And then number 8 there, I think why it's even the biggest is because the procurement and legislative process is never circumvented, despite the fact that we have a capital improvement plan, right? I'm here in front of you folks. Other directors are here in front of you folks asking for supplemental appropriations. Mr. Comlank did tonight a couple of permissions to bid, right? So those things keep you informed as to what the process ultimately is. And then on the far left-hand side of this particular slide, sorry, I just screwed it up, is the annual capital budget process, which at the end of the slide we'll go over what some of that looks like in the coming weeks here. By way of priority, these have not necessarily changed, but I did keep these in. This is something that I presented on a few months ago as it related to the priority status that's identified for each project. So we have a priority 1 or an imperative project. Those are must-dos. Priority 2 are essential projects and should-dos. And then priority 3 are important projects, and we can do those, or we could do those, but these are the way in which we organize things and rank projects, if you would, not within just individual departments, but across the entire plan itself. And then the last note on this particular page here is capital maintenance, and those are single items that meet capital thresholds for value and life cycle. So a good example of a capital maintenance project would be the life cycle replacement on servers and network devices that IT manages and maintains. One of the things that we did talk about again a couple weeks ago, or I'm sorry, a couple months ago at this point, was that we've adjusted the plan phases, and the narrative inside of the document in Chapter 3 has changed considerably, and we've changed these things to be actionable, assessment, identified, and then visionary type projects. And that's how each project is organized inside of the plan itself. The bullets, I won't belabor the points here, but the bullets really define exactly what it is that should be inside of the plan for a given project. So an actionable project, as an example, are projects that are in design and or an active construction phase. Right, the project that we just talked about as it related with Connect just a couple minutes ago, that would be a project that would be likely in an assessment phase, right? We're trying to determine the feasibility, and then once that project rolls into design, that's when it would move from an assessment phase into an actionable phase. And again, those sub-bullets there just identify what you guys would see inside of the CIP as it related to each one of these projects. The last example that I'll give here is that in the visionary projects are identified, but they lack fully defined scale, scope, and approach, and projects are only listed in a conceptual manner, and they don't even have one of the worksheets that's at the back side of the plan. Again, just by way of updating, this is one of the things that we did do last year, but these are, the next two slides here are a list of projects that have been completed. So these are in a warranty phase at this particular point, and even some of these at this point have rolled out of warranty and are completely, quote-unquote, off of the books at this particular point in time. We're no longer holding any retainage. All escrow monies have probably been returned at this point in some instances. And these projects are what I would consider to be closed. I guess some of the highlights here, the Hamilton Road Bridge, I do have an asterisk next to that one because I'm just anticipating that one. I'd like the bridge to be fully open. It's not quite there yet, but hopefully here in the next few weeks, ODOT finishes up that particular work. Speed awareness signs, right? I think that those, this is just really more illustrative of small projects, small items actually having big impacts. Right, we get comments about those particular signs all the time. We get not many requests for those signs, but every once in a while we'll get a request, hey, it would be nice if we had one of those speed awareness signs that's like on Clark State in this particular area. But the Claycraft Road water line, the Havens Road water line, the water tower rehabilitation project, the Academy Park mountain bike trail. These are all projects that have been completed in either in 2024 or in 2025. Some of these, if you were looking at the presentation from last year, some of these may have been repetitive or on both lists. I apologize for that. But these are largely the projects that were, again, finished after the update from last year and rolling into this year. Projects currently, the next couple slides are projects that are currently under construction. So happy to report that we've upgraded 2 traffic control cabinets throughout the city. We've painted over 300 streetlights throughout the city. We're currently in the process of doing, there probably should be an asterisk on this particular one. I'm not quite sure. No, it's under construction. I'm sorry. But the Morse Road, US 62 to RNA, the Reynoldsburg, New Albany roundabout. That's a joint project that we were doing with the City of New Albany, Franklin County, the Franklin County Engineers Office, and ourselves. To repave that section of Morse Road. The Lincoln High School capacity improvements, that was actually a project that Tom just, the asterisks are projects that there was a request for bid for the next 2 projects, Lincoln High School capacity improvements, and then the sanitary and storm sewer CCTV project, the Taylor Road water line. Each of those projects will go out to bid in construction. Hopefully we'll start on those projects either later this year or early next year. Price Roadhouse, I believe just a few weeks ago, we signed the construction agreement to get the Price Roadhouse under construction, and that's currently underway. I think construction started a week or 2 ago at this particular point in time. Obviously, 825 is still on our list, and then here on the next slide here, I do believe, I think Chief sent an email earlier today that 2 of our emergency sirens have been replaced, and we're waiting on Franklin County EMA to complete a 3rd for us this year. You will see a request, I think in 2027 in the detailed document for the replacement, I believe, of the other 3 sirens that we have located throughout the city here. A couple of IT items on here, or the remaining items on here are all IT-related items. Next slide here are any projects that have been canceled. There's a quote-unquote cancel clause inside of the project. There's only one project that we've actually considered to be canceled, and that comes off of the core systems for Parks and Recreation. The Parks and Recreation, their programming system. We're choosing to do a technology review of that particular package and upgrade the actual Vermont Systems software and package that we currently have, as opposed to throwing the baby out with the bathwater, if you would, and do a review of that technology and actually enhance it as opposed to starting a scratch. I know Ms. Bowers, you may have a question there.
So residents should continue to interface with RecTrack. It's what we're going to continue to use for now.
It will be the technology stack itself will be reviewed, and the user interface will be reviewed. And based on enhancements that, or improvements that the RecTrack folks have made to that package, we'll come up with a list of improvements and begin to implement those over time, so they should see improvements to the overall usability of the package itself.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep. That just as another note on that then rolls into the Department of Parks and Recreation's operating budget for funding and those things. So it comes out of the capital project
Right,
as opposed to.
that makes sense.
Yeah. So next slide here is capital investments from 2026 to 2030. We see each one of the categories, the 6 categories in the way in which the plan is organized. The number in parentheses next to the categories are the number of projects that are identified in each one of those categories. And then the 5-year projection is the actionable projects that are organized within 2026 to 2030 and when their funding year is. I will note that some projects are funded over multiple years. They're funded over multiple years, and you guys would end up seeing that in the detail. The pie chart here has been updated and looks very similar, I guess with the exception of the fact that city facilities under the previous document had the large 60 million, I'm rounding, for 825 in there, so the percentage for city facilities was a bit higher. But this basically says that over the next 5 years from 26 to 2030, we would expect to expend about $113 million in overall capital improvements across each one of these sectors.
Yes, Mrs. McGregor.
Is police spread around all those sections? Or
I'm sorry?
Is the police department, they have capital projects, are they spread amongst these categories?
The police department, I'm sorry,
Yeah, the
police department, yeah, that, yes, correct. So like, for example, police cruiser replacement, those would be found under equipment.
Okay.
Any technology systems that are being replaced, those are under the technology program,
Okay.
yes. So the next few slides here, this slide here, the next few slides, there's one slide for each one of the different sections. So there's 6 slides here. On the left-hand side, again, you'll see the number of identified projects from 26 to 2030. You'll see the projected investment over that 5-year period, $39 million, again, rounded up from the previous slide. And then one of the other things that I'm trying to accomplish on this same slide here is the 2026 request that we'll ultimately see at budget time. It might be adjusted slightly, but I'm trying to accomplish multiple things during this presentation. What you'll also see on the right-hand side of the slide is the detailed 2026 request by each one of these projects. So that's that 8 you can see on the top slide where it says Transportation and Mobility 2026 request, $8.1 million. And then you can see how that shakes out across each one of the 8 different projects that are listed. Well, in this instance, there's 6 because there's 6 projects identified for 26 and 2 others are funded in out years. A lot of what drives in the 4 bullets below that, a lot of what drives the $39 million are listed in these bullets, and each slide, each subsequent slide functions the same exact way. So the street program, traffic control and street light improvements, West Johnstown road improvements, and then overall comprehensive transportation and mobility plan programming is driving the $39 million that you see above for the projected investment from 2026 to 2030. And then the other thing that I did, I added a box below so that either in your binders or in your PDF, you can quickly refer to the section. So the section is summarized on page 20. The 5-year projection is summarized on page 38. And then the funding summary is shown on page 148. And in other areas, like on the next slide here, you'll see page ranges that are also provided and such, so that you can get to a page fairly quickly. I will say this, it'll be easier to do that in the digital copy than likely in your binder, but it at least gives you a starting place. From a utility system standpoint, utility systems, sanitary sewer, stormwater systems, and potable water systems, for 2026 to 2030, we've identified another 8 projects. Projected investment of $28 million with a $2.1 million request for 2026. A large part of what's driving the $28 million over the next 5 years is the West Side Sewer, project, which, remember, that entails a water project, stormwater project, sanitary sewer project, and then a road improvement project, which is technically covered or organized under the transportation and mobility systems. The number is so little in 2026, only $2.1 million, because the larger numbers hit after design happens and the contracts go out and construction actually begins in out years. And again, also summarized in the pages down there below. Parks and Recreation is broken up into 4 different sections. We have play features and surfaces. We have parks renovation projects. We have trail projects, and we have pool infrastructure related projects. For 2026 to 2030, there are 33 identified projects with a projected investment of $27 million. And the request for 2026 is about just under $8 million. A large part of what's driving the the $27 million and even the $7.8 million for next year is Academy Park. You will notice under Park Renovations, Academy Park, there is, of the $7.8 million, there's a $6 million ask for Academy Park. Academy Park, I'll remind us that one of the things we talked about last year was taking all of the individual projects. I think we had a parking lot project, we had a trailhead project, we had some fencing projects, we had one or two, the play structure, and we've rolled all of that into one project as opposed to 4 individual projects, in part because they're all taking place at the same time. They're being designed under the same contract, and it's easier for us to think about these as one project as opposed to 4 disparate things, especially when we're looking to, maybe we need a couple of extra dollars in the play structure pot from the, the asphalt pot, and it's easier for us to move things around in budget and so on. So that's Academy, and that's a $6 million ask for 2026. A lot of what's driving the $27 million is two large trail projects in the Link to Literacy and the Big Walnut Trail project. Even if, I will remind us that these projects are talked about in totals, right? So we're getting a good chunk of money for the Big Walnut Trail as an example from Linkus. Don't quote me on numbers at the moment, please. The Big Walnut Trail number, let's say it's a $6 million number. I'm not exactly sure what it is. I'm reflecting the whole $6 million, which is Linkus plus our investment in that particular project. So I'm showing both halves of it at the same time to ultimately get us to the $27 million.
Wonderful. Thank you, Director. I believe Mr. Schnetzer had a question on this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate you, Director Schultz. Has the Academy Park project expanded at all? And the basis for that question is I seem to have like a $3 to $3.5 million number in my head, including when you add up all of the individual projects. I think the parking lot repavement expansion was like 800. The trailhead is in there. I think the fencing is somewhere between 70 and 80. I believe the shelter was included in there as well. I'm just curious if that seems to be a significantly larger number than what we had summed up in years past. And I'm just curious if the scope has changed or if it's just that's what things cost these days.
The scope is largely the same.
Okay.
I think one of the X factors there, and maybe some of the numbers you remember, is the parking lot did expand. We talked about that last year at about this time, which got us a larger number. One of the things that I think we began to realize is that in some instances we were strictly talking just construction and we weren't necessarily talking delivery, meaning it cost a lot of money also to deliver a project, meaning how do we get it constructed. So some of those costs weren't necessarily associated with the project, and that's one of the things that even both on the engineering and the Parks and Rec side, we're making sure that we have total project costs. And then I do think that there was probably an underestimation on, in particular, the shelter facility with the restrooms and the storage facility and the trailhead component that increased the overall cost of the project. So between the the structure itself, and then the parking lot that got us, and then the delivery mechanism of the project, it got us to about that $6 million number there.
Okay. So
And remember, and I will point out, just for full transparency, the $6 million number is the 2026 request. That, what you're seeing here on the screen, is not reflective of the other monies that have already been appropriated for things like design and those types of things.
So I guess the conceptual drawings or, the conceptual site images that were provided back in October are still largely valid?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Mr. Dova.
Thank you. I don't think I'm jumping ahead here, but let me know if I am. Because on the Parks and Rec pool infrastructure, we have the aquatics assessment facilities plan, and that has been completed and is marked as such in the status. But where does, I don't see it showing up anywhere else. So it seems like that has just been marked completed and.
Because the master plan itself has been completed.
Yeah. So where's the next action go, or what is the next action for
We can
that?
arguably, and I can add this in, is there should be a visionary project to reflect the components of the master plan itself. But it could be none other than a visionary project, which lacks scope and detail as to exactly what the project entails, right? So the master plan identified the wants of the community, if you would. Identified the wants of the community, but didn't necessarily, there wasn't the ability to associate resources with those at this particular time. How big of a plan do we want to do based on what the work that the consultant did? That has not been feathered out. There's a variety of other projects that are in that same state. Mr. Weaver and I had a quick conversation earlier in the evening about the Clark State Road multi-use trail as another example where we have a document, we have information as it relates to a particular project, but it hasn't necessarily been incorporated because it hasn't gone through the process in order to be. The Comprehensive Transportation and Mobility Plan is one of those things that there's going to be a litany of projects that are identified inside of there that, yes, should go into the CIP, but they need to be organized, ranked, and then prioritized as to how we're going to address those things, and then ultimately resource them at the same time. So, but we can add a visionary project in there for the parks, the aquatics master plan.
So thank you. I do feel like the way that this is laid out here, you have the, actionable assessment identified in visionary, where under assessment, it's pending planning and assessment work to establish feasibility. General cost estimates are based on best known information. I feel like the assessment has already been, that has been done, and so it seems, I don't know, it just seems weird to go from assessment back down to visionary.
Read identified for me. And we can make a good case that it should be identified and not visionary. Assessment is much more specific information about a particular project. So, what the aquatics master plan reflected, is it even capable of being built where Brent Stetter, in replacing the pool itself. So when we talk about assessment, we're really talking about like geotechnicals and those types of activities taking place for a very specific project. Whereas in a master plan, that's only conceptual information, and the numbers are only as good as the minute in which the consultant has put it on a piece of paper. So like if we said, just to continue down that particular road, if we said, well, let's do a project, but let's not include any of the slides, what does that make the project out to be, right? They gave us everything and said this is what it would cost, which I think, if I'm remembering correctly, was a $30 million aquatics facility.
It goes around 20, but yeah. Okay, I'm just a little bit, so I guess you said that we would want to add a visionary.
It's either visionary or
I'm just
identified. We can
concerned
make the
about,
case that it's identified. Sure.
We've invested the money into this, the assessment, or maybe not by this definition? And then where does that go if it just says, we say complete and we take it out of here?
Sure.
Concerned about things getting, for lack of other words, lost and not coming back to that. It seemed like in the aquatics, in that committee, that the pools are going to need pretty hefty upgrades here in the near future. And so it seems like we need to be having this on our radar to plan for that and not get lost in this book, in this process. Thank you.
Saw Mrs. McGregor next, and then Ms. Bowers.
The lining for the big, at the piano swim pool, that was supposed to last for 10 years, and I know that it's well past 10 years, so is that holding its own, or is that?
It's still holding the water as far as I know,
Okay.
yes.
I think we're on year 8.
Oh, no, it's more, it's,
Year 8 of 6, I believe. It was supposed to last 6 years, and now we're in 8.
10 years. It was supposed to be 10 years.
It's
We're
all
on year 8.
2018. Yeah, we're getting close.
is that, it was only that, oh, I thought it was a lot longer than that, okay. I stand corrected. I should always worry about that, okay.
COVID time.
I'm done,
Okay.
that's it.
Ms. Bowers.
A question about the Creekside flood mitigation and plaza redevelopment.
Can I get to facilities first and then ask that question?
Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you. Are we good on Parks and Rec for the?
Yes,
The
yes,
moment?
sir.
Good.
Yes, please, Director.
Sorry,
Thank you.
I didn't realize where we were in the presentation.
No problem.
I apologize.
So under city facilities, 2026 to 2030, 3 identified projects. $26 million. I do have an asterisk next to that, obviously, because this particular money, the $24 million for Creekside flood mitigation and plaza improvements, is not going to be part of the 2026 capital budget request that we make in October. Okay, we will, I wanted to identify it and show it, because that's an actionable project, one that's in design and pretty far down the road, to the point where, we're looking for, to confirm budgets and those types of things. So I wanted to identify it, but it won't actually be part of the 2026 request. What we will do is we will make a, very similar to what we did on 825, as it relates to what that funding mechanism looks like for that particular project. We will come back and have much more deeper conversations as it relates to that particular project and what those components are. And then we do have the standard, we do have still some money in there for parks and service maintenance complex. That's investigative type monies, similar to what the request was last year. And then strategic land development, or land for development, 300,000. That's the monies that have been discussed in the past, that go towards CIC related endeavors. Ms. Bowers.
Yeah. This might just be a technical issue, but what I see identified on page 29 in our books, the 7.1.2 identifies, here it identifies 25 million. And then in the back of the book, in the appendix where it has kind of the shorter listing.
Yep.
It has 10 million or so identified. And so I was just wondering if there was, and that was the 5 and 10 year projection. 9 million for the 5-year projection and 10 million for so that might just be like a.
I think in part what was plugged into those numbers, that probably should have been adjusted was, Joanne and I were projecting some debt service numbers. And I think that those got plugged in so that we could see how that impacted resources year after year. And I don't think that got switched out, but I'll take a look at that. I'll take a peek at that.
And then I guess my other question around this, I want to be really clear that that decision has not been made yet.
100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
So as far as I understand, we're still evaluating whether it's need to do, should do, would be nice to do, where we're going to fall in that spectrum as far as Creekside goes.
More conversation to come on that, yes. I did want to show, though, that we are anticipating, when I was here to present Creekside a while back, the administration is working towards funding it's not quite a $24 million project, but a $24 million project as it relates to the plaza.
Okay.
Ms. Vidal.
Sorry, just to piggyback on that, on the page for Creekside flood mitigation, just a clerical error is the project overview actually has the overview of the services. So that.
Service complex?
Yeah.
The description?
Yeah.
Can we, so just to make sure I'm clear on this too, when I'm looking at the insert, the 26 request by project, and by project category, 7.1 city facilities shows a $400,000 ask, but then on the backside, it shows Creekside as being $0, and so the 400,000 that's being requested would be for two other.
Your sheet there for the 26 budget request is accurate.
Okay, so not anticipating any funding in 2026.
We will
for the
come back to
plaza.
you folks for a budget request for Creekside at another date. It won't be during the October budget presentation,
Okay.
because we're not prepared for that. We have preliminary numbers, right? So for 825, what we did for 825 is we went out and we had, remember we had a GMP for 825, and we had 2 GMPs, and that actually established that $24 million number in this particular instance. That basically said, oh, the project is $21 million, and this is the GMP, and this is the money that you're approving. We approved bonding up to, I forget exactly what the number was, right? But we approved bonding up to a particular number based on what our budget estimate was. But this is basically just a preliminary number, and one that will not be locked in until, if I had to guess right now, if I had to wave my wand and guess, I'm going to say first quarter, early second quarter of 2026.
So would you be anticipating, I'm just trying to get a gauge on whether this is, so the asterisks mean you're going to update it before we approve a 2026 budget?
No.
Okay, so it would be a supplemental,
Correct. The asterisk means it's not going to be updated before the budget. It's going to remain 0. Your sheet there that you're holding up, which is the
Yeah.
2026 budget request,
yeah,
preliminary budget request, is correct.
okay,
So when you look at the total there at the bottom, it should total to what the total request is going to be for 2026. And we will come back and ask for a different appropriation for Creekside at a later date. Because that's likely to be, I mean, there's no mystery, right? It's likely to be bond funded. So we would have to work through an entire bond legislation and all that in order to get to what that number exactly looks like, so.
okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
What you're seeing in the other sheets there, which are in error, is the projected debt service for 26, 27, and 28. That gets us to the 5-year period, which gets us to the 7 million, and that's in error. You're seeing, as Mr. Schnetzer likes to refer to it, the making of the sausage, and you shouldn't be. Yeah, so I apologize for that.
So Director, you have additional slides, correct?
Yes, sir.
I know that we have allotted the opportunity for this item to come back to committee.
Yep.
And there's a request that if we have questions, we can submit them ahead of time so that they can be vetted and answered at that time as well. Seeing that we are almost at 10 o'clock, I just thought if folks are amenable to that, I would encourage if we could have Director maybe finish his presentation this evening, and then we'll take the opportunity to review, gather questions, and I would say, would you like all the questions emailed to you, Director, or to Clerk Van Meter or myself? I'm happy to gather them as well.
They can come directly to me, that's fine.
Okay.
Yep. Next 2 slides, last 2 slides is equipment. This includes public safety, this includes fleet vehicles, mechanical equipment. I'll let you guys read the slides at your leisure. And then the last here is our fiber infrastructure, our applications, and then our IT infrastructure. Again, the only request for 2026 is $250,000 for fiber optic work, in large part because we've been making investment as part of our 825 project as it relates to these items. And the last slide here, per Mr. Weaver here, so I'll go right to first reading on October 6th, further conversation on October 13th, second reading, and adoption on October 20th. Remember, this is not a budget document, this is a guidance document, so it doesn't bind us to anything, and that work will happen during the budget workshop and the budget process, which commences with the budget workshop on October 23rd, and then we'll be in front of you folks for capital budget on October 27th. So, that's my time.
All right, thank you, Director. Again, I don't want to cut anybody off if they have pressing questions, but if we can gather them, I think that might be, give folks time to review as well. So, Director mentioned on for first reading in the interim on the 6th, but back at committee on the 13th. And in the meantime, please send any questions to Director Schultz. I think you made reference in one of your earlier documents that if you could have questions by the 9th, that would be helpful. Yes, I see Miranda,
Yes,
not
Miranda
Director
says
Volmer
yes.
saying yes. So, all right, thank you very much, Director. Appreciate it. Well, at the breakneck speed, we are moving this evening. We've got items from council members next. I will turn first to Council Member Bowers.
Yeah, thank you. Just two joint resolution proclamations that I had the privilege to work on with our council office staff. With regard to the traveling Vietnam Veterans Memorial Wall, Vietnam Traveling Memorial Wall, that might be subject to some further edits. There is outreach to the American Legion Post to discuss with them. And then with regard to the second item, Resolution 43-2025, the Sullivan family is very excited to join us on October 6th. And I wanted to thank Mayor Jadwin for supporting this and joining this joint resolution proclamation to recognize Mr. Sullivan and celebrate the important biodiversity that we have here in Gahanna.
Any discussion on this item? Thank you, Ms. Bowers and the administration and council office for your work on both of these. Resolution on for consent on the 6th. All right. Last up, we have items from council office, liquor control transfer permit. Mr. Clerk.
Last but not least, we do have a liquor control permit. This is a transfer of ownership from local cantina Gahanna LLC to Ohio United Group LLC at 101 Mill Street. The Division of Police notes no objections to the transfer. Therefore, if council has no objections, I will return the notice that we do not request a hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. So actually, on this one, no, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Hey, I want to thank everybody for bearing with us this evening. Thank you to the administration and staff for the long hours this evening. If you were following along online, thank you very much. Anything else for the committee this evening? Seeing none, we will adjourn. Thank you very much.